So to keep with the theme and the spirit of the new year, I want to talk about overall this month some of the habits and ideas, the misconceptions about manifestation that we need to leave behind. In the last video that I released following the new year, I talked about how we need to start thinking from the desire instead of thinking of it. Today I want to tackle another common subject, and one that we desperately need to better understand, which involves a lot of habits that we desperately need to break. Today I want to talk about signs, and I want to talk about partial manifestations. I get questions about these all the time. They come up often, and I would certainly do a disservice if I didn't make sure that you all have an understanding of what signs are and what partial manifestations mean. Because these two topics go hand in hand, and if we're not careful, they can certainly lead to a lot of confusion, which can keep us stuck in that ever-loving feedback loop. So if you are somebody who has perhaps been seeing a lot of signs lately, if you're somebody who's curious about signs, or someone who has struggled with partial manifestations, then this video has your name all over it. I definitely recommend watching to the end. By the way, hi, I'm Missy Renee. And on this channel, we talk all things manifestation and the law of assumption. So if those things are topics that you want to learn more about, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon for notifications, and if you enjoy these videos, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're interested in more of my resources, such as my coaching programs, my workshops, and masterclasses, I got links to all of that down in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. If there is one thing that I would love to see everybody leave behind entirely in the new year, it's the idea of signs. And I know that this one can be a struggle for us due to our conditioning to the 3D and needing to check for confirmation in the 3D. It's all too easy for us to be susceptible to signs. This is especially true if you are somebody that perhaps came to this from the law of attraction community, which talk heavily about signs. And though virtually everybody here watching this video knows what signs mean, I want to be really quick and clear on what a partial manifestation is. A partial manifestation is essentially in the name. It's when we start to see some semblance of movement or some semblance of confirmation that our manifestation is unfolding. Perhaps it appears like we are on the bridge, but then as quickly as things seem to unfold, it just stops. It appears like that momentum comes to a halt entirely, like we're stopping just short of seeing the complete manifestation. Suffice to say, looking for signs that your manifestation is coming is a trap, and I'm just going to be very real with all of you. If this is a habit that we notice we are doing, it is one that I strongly recommend you getting out of. And the reason for this, the reason that we do not want to be looking for signs or giving all of our attention to these so-called signs is quite simple. And I want to refer to a quote from Neville that many in this community hear, but I don't know if very many understand. When Neville talked about signs, he would say that signs follow and do not precede. And I know that this wording can be a little bit confusing, so I really want to break this down in the most simple way that I possibly can. When we see a sign that is in relation to what we are manifesting, that is in no way showing you what is going to happen. This is not a confirmation that our manifestation is going to follow that sign. They do not precede or come before the outpicturing in the 3D. Basically, signs do not show you what is about to come. They are just showing you what you were previously thinking about and perhaps ruminating on. Anything that you witness in 3D follows what you have been imagining. So when you see a sign for something, it's basically confirmation that you have been thinking about this thing. And I've made a video recently talking about this in a bit more detail, about birds before land, which is another very common concept in this community. I would definitely recommend checking out that video after you watch this one. I'll leave the link for that guy up here and also down below. But what we want to remember about signs is that they are separate individual manifestations in and of themselves that don't necessarily mean that your ultimate ideal, your ultimate desire is going to happen. And if we are not careful, It is all too easy for us to get fixated on signs and manifesting signs instead of the thing that we ultimately want, which is the entire reason that I needed to make this video today. Because there are some things that we desperately need to leave behind us. There are some habits and things that we do that we have to learn to drop. And to use the SP example, since an SP is an aim for many in this community, I'm sure if you are manifesting a specific person, you're probably thinking about that person quite a bit. Ergo, it's not going to be surprising if you start seeing their name everywhere, or if you come across a doppelganger of them, somebody who looks similar to them. Maybe you run into somebody who has a lot of the same mannerisms as your person. These would not necessarily be signs that you're getting closer, but confirmation that you've been thinking about this person. And keeping ourselves fixated on signs and looking to the 3D is the culprit of why we experience partial manifestations. The main reason that we begin to see something unfold but not completely turn out or not completely come to fruition is because of our attachment to 3D. As soon as we start to see movement or a sign, perhaps they reach out to us in the case of a specific person, or we start to notice maybe a shift in their behavior, we then get preoccupied and fixated on the 3D instead of what we should be keeping our attention on, and that is living in the end and going back to that end as often as need be. And because our attention is now on the 3D instead of going back to the end, and we are naturally very moved by the 3D, it is very easy from this place, with our attention diverted from living in the end, to start falling back into old thinking patterns and old beliefs and usually old fears. And because our attention is now on the 3D instead of in the end, the reflections that follow are going to be of usually what we don't want. What we have to remember is that even the act alone of looking for signs and wondering when it's going to show up, in and of itself, is indication and feedback that we are not, in that moment at least, living in the end. Because if you are in fact living in the end, you're not going to be looking for 3D proof. So instead of keeping our attention fixated on signs and the 3D and partial manifestations, we have to begin to look at it instead like feedback. And it is feedback in that moment that you are not dwelling in the state that you ideally want to be dwelling in. Because if you are now the person that you desire to be, who was experiencing what you desire to experience, would you be looking for confirmation? No. If something is already yours, you're probably not even going to be thinking about it all that much. And when the thought does come up, you're going to feel a sense of peace and relief and maybe a little bit of that satisfaction because I have this and it feels amazing. So what's another example of thinking from something? Let's say that I know that I have a kitten. I know I have this kitten. I know it is mine. So I'm not going to be spending the day looking for it. I'm not going to be spending the day hoping that I get this kitten and wondering when I'm going to get this kitten and wondering if he's going to be well behaved or not. I'm going to know that it's already mine. I'm going to be thinking about, where is that kitten? Is he busy somewhere tearing up my clothes? I love that little fur ball as much as he drives me crazy. I'm going to be thinking about and from the place of already having that kitten. Apply this to anything that you desire. And I know that the 3D is absolutely the bane of our existence in all of these teachings because of how incredibly conditioned and attached we are to 3D circumstance. But this habit is one that must be broken. And I'm going to repeat this ad nauseum as many times as it takes. So with that understanding, the next obvious question would be, well, if we can't look to signs in the 3D, if we can't get 3D confirmation, then what can we use as a gauge if this is working or not? If we are, in fact, doing this right or not? This question is the $1 million question, so I want you to listen carefully and I want you to play this back over and over until it sinks. The only thing that you are gauging to tell you if this is working or not is your own inner conversations and how you are reacting to the world around you. The way to gauge if this is actually working is to note your inner conversations and your reactions to the world around you. You will know that it is done when your natural thoughts, reactions, and inner conversations line up with the version of you that already has your desire. Your mental diet is critical. It is very important. Bring awareness to the types of conversations that you are having internally and how you are reacting to those, how it makes you feel. The associated feelings and reactions to what you are thinking is the most important factor of all. And this segues into the last thing that's really important to note on the topics of signs, mental diet, and looking to the 3D. We must be completely honest with ourselves as to where we are at in any given moment. When we are observing our inner world, we must be as honest and non-partial as possible. And we want to ask ourselves the following. Am I truly thinking from my end as somebody who already has it, or am I just thinking of it? Am I truly embodying the version of me that has my desire? Am I thinking and reacting from the place of somebody who has my desire? Am I noticing a change within me? Am I noticing an internal shift with how I am feeling in my day-to-day? Or am I just thinking about my desire and nurturing the hope that I will someday maybe get it, hopefully? When I am imagining, am I focused on thinking and feeling from the place of already having and already being? Or am I just hoping that doing these techniques is going to ultimately get me what I want someday? We must be able to make this distinction, and we must be able to do so honestly, because there's many instances and many times where we may think we're living in the end, but we're actually just indulging in wishful thinking. And in true Missy Renee fashion, here are not one, but 3 quotes from Neville to genuinely and truly drive this point home. Everything is a projection of your consciousness. Signs are different manifestations. When you focus your attention on signs, you will only get signs, but not the destination itself. Most metaphysical students have no aim, claiming God knows best. But I ask you, how can this be when you and God, your Father, are one? Human nature wants things to come first, with belief to follow. But I say you must assume the consciousness of already having or being your desire before the sign that you have it can appear. Signs follow. They do not precede. Seek the conscious feeling of having already reached your goal, and the sign that you have achieved it will follow. If you assume that you are what you want to be, your desire is fulfilled. And in fulfillment, all longing is neutralized. You cannot continue desiring what you have already realized. Your desire is not something you labor to fulfill. It is recognizing something you already possess. It is assuming the feeling of being that which you desire to be. Believing and being are one. The conceiver and his conception are one. Therefore, that which you conceive yourself to be can never be so far off as to even be near, for nearness implies separation. Therefore, that which you conceive yourself to be can never be so far off as to even be near, for nearness implies separation. And this one is so important to drive home, because a lot of times we have the feeling like it's so close, it's almost there, I can taste it, I'm so close to my manifestation being done. Even that implies separation. Even that mentality that it is so close, it's almost here, still implies that you are not it. You are not yet the person who has your desire. And once we truly understand this, once we truly understand that signs always follow and never precede our manifestation, once we understand that we are to not give our attention to the 3D for confirmation, for validation, or for assurance, and that our only gauge is our inner world, and that by our reactions and noting our internal conversations and how we are thinking, viewing, and looking at the world around us, once we truly begin to make this internal shift within, realizing that all things first come from within and are expressed and pushed out, once we do this, once we understand this, you will no longer need a sign and can start walking in the faith that it is already yours. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope this helped to drive some points home. If you enjoyed it, if you found it informative, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you are interested in checking out any of my other resources, I have links down below in the description box for my coaching programs, my workshops and masterclasses, my blog, my podcast, my social channels. Got a ton of great resources down below, so don't forget to check it out. Also, don't forget to watch the other videos on this channel. Be sure to check out my Manifestation Fundamentals playlist. Each video is a different topic, but they all talk about how to manifest the greatest life ever. So until next time, you guys, as always, please take care, be well, and never forget that the key to heaven is within you, and to take attention away from the damn 3D. Much love, guys, and happy manifesting.